Hey,
everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Show. Today, we have a faith-based actor who has appeared in the internationally distributed God Bless the Broken Road and Crowning Jewels. He portrays Augustine Washington, the father of George Washington, in the trilogy Washington's Armor, to be released later this year during the holidays. You can also see him in the faith-based action hero short Night Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the very talented Wayne Matychuk. Hey, Wayne,
well, thank
how
you
are
so
you,
much.
bro?
I'm doing well, bro. How are you today?
I am doing great. It's great to have you on the show. And here we are, Wayne, dealing with this crazy COVID-19 stuff. For entertainers, actors, is tough business. How are you navigating and swimming through the waters of the pandemic as far as entertainment goes?
Yes. It was a tough year for everyone, and for actors, especially getting close to people. If you're doing a certain roles, you got to get close for the camera. So, yeah, it was a different year. It was quiet for me in many ways, but yeah, I was able. It was a very successful year for me. Actually, was able to do a commercial. One of my biggest gigs so far was a commercial, and it was just before everything kind of broke loose, and everyone's wondering how's this going to play out. We're gonna, are we going to get this done? And then when COVID and all the quarantine hit, still did some looking, but things really quieted down. I would say maybe 25% of the things maybe from previous years were being posted as things to submit for. Did land a great film out of a brand new Christian production company out of Oregon last fall, Spiritworks Productions. And so that was a great production to be involved with. It was a SAG production, even though it was a short, and they followed the protocols great. So there was masks for everyone. Anytime we weren't acting, we had our masks up. So even in between takes on the same set, masks up. And as far as makeup, that was the one time then she had to kind of be with everyone, doing the makeup up close and personal for everyone. So that was kind of the one thing, and that's I guess they allowed for that. But yes, there was someone on set to always watch and make sure that protocols were being followed.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the COVID-19 protocol. So it's a little bit to work with, just to do what you were there for, other than try to figure out how to, hide behind a mask. But no, it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. I had Jonathan Wessel on the show not too long ago. You guys did an action short called Night Guard, which I thought was, I liked it because it was entertaining from an action hero standpoint, and I've never seen a faith-based action film. So I thought that was pretty cool. And
it was neat.
And it was also kind of comedic at the same time, which made it really interesting. You guys did a short on that, and I'm hopeful as a fan that you guys will expound on that and make a full-length feature film. But tell us a little bit about Night Guard and the making of that film.
A neat film. It actually turned out to be a standalone 25-minute show. So it's their pilot episode, and there are plans for future episodes and more to come. But for that show, great directing, great grip, and I mean all the crew on that, great actors, really fun to be part of it. I was kind of calling it a Christian superhero martial arts film, and then I realized martial arts may mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So yes, we did have a black belt who did some amazing work as our superhero, but it's not really promoting martial arts. It's really a Christian action film, and with some great moves in it, and just lots of great action. My role was kind of like a Liam Neeson role, where I was the bad guy, and give me the money and kind of stuff. And so and the black belt guy, I mean, he really landed some kicks on me, and it was a really there was a scene where he takes me down and kicks me onto a table of money, and the money just goes flying, and I land on my back, and yeah, my biggest stunt, and I really enjoyed it. But everything in that whole scene was just, there were so many people on hand doing everything just right. It was fun.
Well, it was fun to watch, and again, there's nothing like that in Christendom when it comes to filmmaking, that particular genre, which I thought was really cool. And I believe the creator, and correct me if I'm wrong because he has a very interesting last name, but I think it's Nathaniel Skexnader. He's the creator, writer, and director.
Yes,
and he did a great job. Correct. He did a great job putting it together and organizing it. I love the fact that he wanted to, because I think this is something, quite frankly and honestly, that Christian filmmaking needs to get into. It's like, okay, monitor or the vibe of TV and film, and it's like the biggest filmmaking right now, and Hollywood doesn't like this, but it's the comic book character theme. It dominates. I mean, everybody loves a good action, hero story. Everybody loves Marvel, DC. So I think for Christendom to get into that in filmmaking and do a really good job at it, like Night Guard, that short dude is really good, and it could be a full-length feature.
Oh, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it be a full length, and as well, even if it comes out in a season or two, you get a little more chance to develop the characters. There's some neat characters, and just the whole idea of a young man wanting to be a superhero and getting his chance. I mean, it's pretty neat. So
you know what I love about it too, as you say that, is you sneakily invoke the word of God into the short. You know what I mean?
Right. That's the whole thing. That's kind of the premise. I mean, so this young man wants to save the city, but when he meets the real superhero, the real superhero tells him, you can save the city, but I mean, there's something more important, and so that's when the word of the Bible comes in, and so it's pretty neat, and a mantle gets passed down, so it's a story that everyone would love.
Everyone would love it, and I from a Christian perspective, it's like the secular viewer is watching it from the beginning as purely just an exciting show. And then you subtly slide the Bible in there. And see, by that time, the viewer is invested in the show now. They don't care necessarily that the Bible said, they just love the action and the idea. And so now you really have a chance to minister to the secular viewer.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity. Yes, and like you say, it kind of pulls you in. There's some really neat stuff. It's all done well. Got some great sets. So yes, I would love to see more coming from that production company on that.
And Jonathan Wessel, he kind of has a Peter Parker vibe to the way that he performs his role. Because he's humorous. He's very he's funny, but at the same time, he's a good actor, and he's very believable, and he draws you in. And then you have a Liam Neeson type character. That's a good description. You are exactly like Liam Neeson in there. You're a very good bad guy in the film. And then Gary Nation. Then Gary Nation was awesome as he started it out.
Yes.
Great cast.
Yes, he brings a maturity to the role, and just you can see him as caring for the city and being the superhero, but yet being quiet about it. So
a few days ago, I think it was last week, Wayne, I had Timothy Perez Ross on the show, who's involved with the trilogy Washington's Armor, which you are a part of. And I had Amanda Erickson on the show also. She's a part of it. And Todd Terry from Vindication. He's also a part of Washington's Armor. Tell the fans a little bit about this project.
Yeah, it's just growing. Even Michael W. Smith joined on as a character, and I haven't seen any of the work that he's done. But yes, it's growing, and it's changed from being a television series to being a trilogy, a movie trilogy. So trilogy part number 1 coming out like this fall, like you say. So it's a beautifully done from beginning to end. Every part of it is just excellently done. And it's the life of George Washington, primarily during his time in the French and Indian War. So
yeah,
at a time when he's still working for the British. So it's very early in his career. It's based on the story by David Barton, the Bulletproof George Washington, a great story. And so it's based on the truth that, I mean, George Washington was out leading British troops, and there was Indians, warriors, chiefs taking shots at him and then saying, he's the one, we got to get him. And him coming out of that battle with several holes in his shirt and his jacket, through his hat, 2 horses getting shot out from underneath him. And yet he survived. And so that's kind of the start of it. But so there's some amazing battle scenes in there. I'm his father, though. And I pass away when George is just 13 years old. And so whenever I come into the movie, I'm a flashback telling something very important to George. And so he'll remember back at a certain point during the movie something his father told him. And there will also be scenes where he'll remember back to his mother. She was very instrumental in his life, and she prayed for him daily. It's well known the history of how she prayed for him daily. And so there's a scene that I do, and I share my faith with George as he's just a young lad. And at the end, I give him something very special. I won't say what it is. You'll have to see it, but it's very special to me. And I pass it on to him. And it's just it's a very dear moment as you can imagine, a father to a son. But just thinking about, that's like the father to the father of our country in many ways. So it's like it's a neat scene. I was really pleased to be able to do that scene, and I look forward to doing some more.
And I look forward to seeing this trilogy. When can fans expect to see this?
Well, like you say, I think the first one would come out like around Thanksgiving. Not exactly sure about episodes 2 and 3 or films 2 and 3. Sometimes you like to build a following and stuff. So I would guess they would come. Maybe put some time in there just to build that following and just see how fans react. But yeah, it's neat. I'm telling you, I'm on the edge of my seat watching it. I got to watch the premiere, and so just on the edge of the seat. Everything done so well.
Yes, and as a faith-based performer and an entertainer, it's fairly difficult to really establish your niche, as it were, in this industry, particularly when you talk about Hollywood and the kind of stuff that they like to get into, which is highly inappropriate on a lot of levels. However, God has called us into this business to engage our world on his behalf. Right. And sometimes we have to, get into some of those areas of our craft. At the same time, we've got to maintain who we are as children of God. How does your faith influence you as a performer, Wayne?
Right. Well, it influences me in several different ways. One, just personally, it influences the roles that I will accept. I mean, there's sometimes you get an audition, you're like so excited, and then you read through the script, and it's like, I'm sorry, I can't even do this audition for you. No, I don't want the role. And so you have to just say no. Sometimes I've gone to an open audition, or sometimes you'll go to an audition, they'll hand you sides that may not be the script because they want to keep that private. And it's like you read and you land the role, and then you get the script, and it's like, oh wow, I'm sorry, I just I can't do that role. So I want to have things that go along with my faith. Now in Night Guard, I'm the bad guy, but see, in that film promotes Christian values, so I don't mind being a bad guy in that film. And I feel like when my grandson, he's about 4 now, when he gets to be a little older and I show it to him, when he kind of understands what Hollywood and fake imagination and film is, we'll show it to him. But I want him to be like, hey, that grandpa, you were part of something that promoted positive values, so even though I'm the bad guy. But that's the first thing. How I do it, on a daily basis, how I do my acting, I look at it as a ministry. So, and that
Yeah.
gives me, just having Christ as part of my life gives me the energy, the empowerment to do it. Because sometimes it's very demanding, and sometimes it's very difficult, and so can be very long hours. It can be you know on set, or the extra hours of just looking for jobs as auditioning. But then
Yeah.
it's also empowering. I just was going to share that there was a time when I had to do an audition, 19 people in one room, and we all did the exact same script, and we all did it in front of each other. And it's the only time I've ever done an audition like that, but it was a very heavy audition. That sides was someone was kind of going to die.
Okay.
And so when I did that audition, I did it in a certain way so that at the end, I'm emotionally drained and almost to tears, you know.
Wow.
But why could I do that in front of 19 people? It's because Christ frees me, because I believe this is what he's called me to. And I don't care if people say you were over the top on that, or you really, you scared me when you did that audition, or whatever. He frees me to not worry about the outcome.
Right.
And the last thing is, someday I hope to produce my own film. And so if I ever get to the place where I produce my own film, am I going to worry about, well, obviously financing is everything. In order to make a good production, you got to have good financing. But I
Yes.
want my film to, when it's done, I don't want people to say, hey, that film made a lot of money. It was great box office hit and just smashed records. I want people to say, wow, that changed my mind about what I was thinking. That I became a Christian because of that. That really changed my worldview. That's
Yes.
the end result of what I'm doing. Yeah. And so if it trickles down even to the production someday, Lord willing, that's what I wanted to do.
It's really interesting. I had the opportunity to be in Love Different in 2016 with Jen Gotson Chandler, and
Very cool.
great film, funny. It's a comedy directed by Anthony Hackett. And then I won another audition for another film, and my wife and I looked at the script. We went straight to my read.
Okay.
And we've just worked on what I was doing in the film, and it was about domestic violence. And I thought that was an honorable enough of idea to address a real problem. So anyway, I get to the table read, Wayne, and there are two scenes that are pornographic in the film.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, what? And thank God the project was shut down. And I was playing the role of a mayor, and I was just giving a speech at a banquet, which is another reason going in, okay, this is going to be great, But then you realize, thank God shut, because I didn't want my name associated with that, not in any way, because there's no need. When you look at Hollywood and some indie films, there's a lot of scenes that are just not necessary. Like, we're adults. We can read between the lines. Hollywood loves to blur. They love to blur the lines. But I learned the value, as you mentioned, about, okay, let me read the script. What's it saying? You got to read the entire script. You need to know what's going on, because you can get hit with a curveball.
That's tough. That's a tough thing in the industry. A lot of times you don't get it, right? Sometimes you can ask for a synopsis of the film, but sometimes you don't get that necessarily. So yeah, it's kind of tricky navigating through there. Yeah, I'm pleased you made the right choice. Yeah, or at least let's say it got shut down. Yes.
Well, God did me a favor. He grabbed me by the nape of my neck and pulled me out of there. I was like, oh my gosh, I had already signed up to be in the film. But again, as Christian performers, we still, even though we do have to engage our community, we still have to be very careful about, okay, what we're going to be involved with and how far. And listen, let me say this too, Wayne. Every actor that represents the Lord has their line of how far they're willing to go in the name of Christ. I totally get it. Some lines are farther out there than I never judge in that respect. but I think we as Christian performers, we have that to take into consideration as actors. We always have to factor those things in. And I enjoyed your role in Night Guard as the bad guy. You were you were the bad guy, but at the same time, the whole theme was positive and respectable, and you understood what's going on. A secular viewer would love this particular short, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever get, by the way, how can fans see Night Guard?
It's very easy. If you want to sign up for the free app of Redeem TV, right now it's posted on there, and that's just easily accessible through your phone. But there are some links, and maybe the director will post a link at the end of the in the comments, but for a direct link. But it can be Redeem TV. I can just promote. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know that I've watched some fantastic films on there for free. So
Wayne, let me ask you, Wayne, switching gears real quick to the entire faith-based industry in general. What do you think the current state right now for faith-based filmmaking? How would you rate it or view faith-based filmmaking at this time?
Well, there's some really great films coming out.
Okay.
Yes, and I would love to be part of some of those. Some of those films are just doing great. You could say they're doing great in the box office, right? They're being popular all across America, and they're really have very strong Christian values in them. So I think the production qualities, obviously there's partnering now that's come up that is making better funding for Christian films to be made really, really well. Yes, it would be fun to be a part of some of those bigger productions that are doing so well. They're really changing lives, and non-Christians are going to them. On Facebook, I have heard non-Christian friends saying, "Oh, I love that film." I'm like, "You love that film?" Yeah, they do. It's like, yeah, people are watching them, so it's pretty cool.
So you would agree that more secular viewers are being drawn to faith-based films?
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it on Facebook. I'm seeing people comment. So I would agree. Yes. And I think that's what we want. I think that's what we want. I mean, I don't really like swearing necessarily in Christian films. I know it's a kind of a newer thing to get very edgy, but yet real is good, right? And we want to have films that people can come to and relate to.
I think a great example of bringing secular viewers in, like I said about Night Guard. Night Guard's a great way to bring in a secular view, because it's action packed and it's humorous, and it's got that theme again that the whole world craves for, and that's superheroes. So that's one way to kind of bring in the secular eyes. There's a show on PureFlix called Vindication. I'm sure you're aware of it. Todd Terry, who's a member of that show, a part of Washington's Armor, as well as Amanda Erickson. And, that show has a look as if you, at face value, like maybe you're watching Blue Bloods or Law and Order at first, and then you realize, oh, whoa, wait a minute, these guys are going towards Christ. But by that time, the viewer is already invested. But the secular viewer is like all in to the show's theme. And now they don't care if it's going to the light or not. They just want to see the show. And now you're able to minister to someone that doesn't know the Lord. So, I think the way Jared O'Flaherty, the creator of Vindication, for example, the way he handles it, like you said, I mean, there's no need for a lot of swearing. There's no need for a lot of profanity. And there's certainly no need to be showing skin and all these type of things, which is inappropriate. There's a level that you can go to and maintain your allegiance to Christ, and you can stop right there. Okay, we get it.
Right.
And that's kind of what Jared O'Flaherty does. He goes up to a line and he understands where that line is, and he stays behind it, yet tackling tough subject matter.
Yes. No, he's been excellent on it. I mean, yes, some very tough issues, and handled so well. And you're just on the edges of your seat as well with those. The very first one I watched was with Ben Davies. I was hooked. I was hooked. And it's just like, oh man, oh man, you just, that whole script was excellent.
Yeah.
And then I'm just binge watching the rest. And just like, I can't, we'll just watch the rest. So
yeah,
I hope
I
a lot
think
of other
that
viewers are
first
going to do that too,
episode
because it just grabs you.
It does. It does. And Ben Davies does a great job in that opening episode, as well as Todd Terry's usual fantastic acting ability. So that just draws you in. No question about that. Let me ask you this. You've been acting for the past, I think, 4 years dedicatedly. And I'm wondering, in the stint that the time you've been involved, what is the, and by the way, you've learned the craft of acting pretty quickly. You're a very good actor. I'm wondering, what is it that you've learned, Wayne, during your start here into acting that's made actor?
One of the things that made the biggest difference, would you say, in my acting?
Yes.
Being truthful with emotion is a major part of acting. And so handling emotions and heavy emotions can be tough. And so,
yeah,
I remember some of my first auditions doing, like, it was a scene where I'm supposed to cry. And it's like, oh, gee, how am I going to do that? And so I'm going to give you something that just kind of, I'm going to say I've developed it kind of on my own, and just kind of through working with it, because I've tried a lot of different methods of people. And I'm just going to call it no tears in your ears. So if there's a new actor out there and you're like, how do you do that? It's like, hey, I'm going to try that no tears in the ears thing. What is that? No tears in the ears. My mom, when I was a kid, I was probably crying up a storm. And she's like, oh, you have tears in your ears. And I'm like, what is that? Oh, she's like, oh, that comes from an old song in the 40s. I've got tears in my ears, lying on my bed, crying about you all night long. And I'm like,
yeah,
I can imagine that. You're laying in bed, and if you were to cry a lot, the tears would go down. And so the thing is, I'm doing this audition, and I'm supposed to be crying, and then tears come out. And as a newer actor back several years ago, I was like, I'm crying. And when you think about it, all of a sudden it stops. It's like, oh. And so, like, if we think about tears going in our ears or how we're crying, it's going to stop. But what's really changed my acting is, someone told me to know the backstory of your character. And sometimes there's a backstory and you can study it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have an audition and here's like 10 lines. Read this for us, and you're going to cry in this. Oh, you don't know a backstory, but you make a backstory. You think about what that person might have gone through, been doing in life, or how those emotions might have grown in them. So recently I did a film called Paralyzed, and that was my most emotional film. Yes, I had to cry, but why? I was kind of like, how's this going to go, right? And so it's putting yourself in, actually, like, in empathizing with that character, becoming that character. If you think, I've been on sets where people have put in Vicks Vapor Rub in the corner of the eye. It's kind of a irritant, and it will make you cry. And we've all seen actors or actresses go, and it's like, that's not real, And so, how do you really cry? What would real tears be? And so, in that film, just feeling that character, feeling what it would be like, and what it was this character is a man in his 50s apologizing to a son who they've been kind of estranged because he was such a terrible dad when he was growing up. And at that point, when you're thinking about that, it's like, wow, that is such a sad thing that that family has been broken apart, and that father, what he could have done, and how sad the son is. And frankly, God bless, the two of us were just crying. At first the other young man wasn't really so crying, and he's, after the first take, he's like, "Oh, it's great that I can work with you, because you're really into the role and you're crying. How do you do that?" And he's like, "I try Meisner." And it's like, no, it's not the tears in the ears. If you start thinking about how it happens, or what it's doing, or I'm getting 5 tears or 2 tears or whatever, it goes away. And so after he, was kind of like asking, it's like the next 2 takes, were, tears were starting to dry up, and it took a little bit of time. We did it the last take, and I mean, the tears are just flowing. And so, because you can't think about it, you have to put yourself in the place of that character,
yeah,
and feel what he would feel. So that's my tip for that.
Well,
that would probably be my best tip.
Well, it's a great tip. As you mentioned, that I had mentioned earlier that I was in Love Different in 2016 with Jen Gottson, and I had an opportunity to witness a pro at crying, and it was Jen, and she was in a scene with another actor. And what they did, Wayne, and I had never witnessed anything like this before. She and that other actor began to pray before shooting the scene, and they prayed themselves to tears to reach the depth of that emotion. They did it through prayer. I was blown away. And thank God I didn't have to cry. I was the bad guy in this one. So I didn't have, I guess I had to get emotional, but I didn't have to cry. And I watched her prepare, her and Anthony Hackett, who directed and starred in the film. They worked themselves up in tears through prayer. It was absolutely amazing, Wayne. It was amazing. But I have a lot of respect for actors who are able to do that, because it's a very difficult thing to do. It's very difficult, and I had a newfound respect for actors. I'm primarily a stand-up comedian, so getting into that world, I was like, oh man, this is a whole different ball game. And so no, kudos to you that you're able to do that. That's not easy, and you have to be pretty darn good to make that happen. Look, this has been a great convo, Wayne. I want to ask you, before we tip out, if there's any advice that you could leave with young actors and actresses out there that are sitting around, Wayne, thinking about toying with the idea of becoming full-time actors.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as a full-time actor, that's a big step. Yeah. So like, I've actually been acting for like 6 years, but when you start making wages that you pay taxes on, so sometimes you make something here or something there, but yet your costs were such that you're not going to pay taxes on that yet. So to become professional actor, it may take a while, right, before you hit that zone. But to be full-time, it's like, even people who've been professional actors for many, many years are not necessarily full-time on it. And so as a young person, to realize that to do something like this, it's a process. It's not like I'm going to move to Hollywood and I'm just going to do it. I know a lot of people do that, and they think, I've made the decision. And so, yeah. But yet it's recommended that you have a very good survival job. So think about what that might be. For many famous actors, it's been waiting tables, driving taxi, a job that you could easily shift your work schedule when you get an audition. And so
yeah,
you never know when you're going to get that audition. And so you got to have a really flexible job. And so the other thing is, if you're a young person, is to be something. Again, I'll bring my mom back into this conversation. She said when I was a little kid, she said, bloom where you're planted. Now, it's not something that she made up. She read it in a book, but she liked it so much she came up and she said, "Hey, I heard about this. Bloom where you're planted. Isn't that a great idea?"
Yeah.
And we need to. So like if you would think of you would love to act, make sure you're doing acting, where you're at. Maybe that's in high school, college, through your church. And then you can actually apply for gigs in LA or Atlanta or Dallas, New York, from where you live. And then if if you submit and they ask you for an audition, today is very open to you do self-taped on your phone and then submit it. And so you can actually apply to those different markets. You don't have to move to that market, and test the waters, I would suggest, because so many times you hear of someone who's spent a couple $100,000 maybe going to an acting college and then maybe not following that career afterwards. Test the waters. And can you get reasonably affordable training where you're at? Yes, you can. I mean, when I first started out, I soaked up everything I could. I went, and one of the first things I did was to talk to casting directors who offered counseling on how to become an actor. So one was Katrina Cook of Cats Casting, and I know she takes appointments. I made an appointment down in Dallas and went and visited her, and it was time well spent. It really gave me a direction for my career. She also looked over my materials and gave me suggestions. And so another one that can be accessed is Beverly Holloway, and you might access her at ICFF or ICVM, maybe even CWVFF. Those are the names of some well-known Christian film festivals. Now, if you look for those and rewind and catch those abbreviations, you can go follow those on their websites and see if she's going to be attending. And if she's attending, she might take appointments at those. Those are times well spent to give you direction and to get planning ahead and look over your materials. What are your headshots like? What is your film reel like? And if you're just starting out and you don't have a film reel, do local stuff that you can get on your film reel and show someone. So the last thing I was going to say, go ahead.
No, you're right. I mean, going to these festivals, it's huge.
It's one of the better things that I've invested in doing it. Just right up front of this, because then you're getting to know the film directors, the casting directors, the producers, the writers, and cameramen. So you're getting to know many of the different people in the whole industry, and they're getting to know you. So very worthwhile, very, very well spent time. And some of them, like the CWVFF, has training, very good training for newer actors. So Content 2020 is one someone might want to look at attending too. Next one would be actually Content 2021. Just look that up, Google that, and I'm sure a website will come up for next year's event. There's always good training there too.
And there's one. Naniel Skexnader says, fun to see someone acting a little later in life. Good job on your part, Wayne, for sure. You've done some good stuff, man. There's another one called NRB in Dallas, Texas on June.
I've heard of that. Haven't attended it.
Yeah, that I'm gonna go to that one, and gonna be a lot of people in Christian media, and that's going to be a lot of actors there as well. It's just going to be a great chance to network and get a chance to get some inside scoops and make friends in the community.
Right.
So no, you're right. You're right about that. How can fans, Wayne, follow you on social media or by website?
Well, Wayne Matychuk on Facebook is my most biggest socially used media. I do all my networking on there pretty much, and find a lot of gigs on there actually. So I would highly recommend that. Connect to me, and then some people have connected with me on Instagram. I don't do that a whole lot. I mean, like hardly ever. So, but yet some fans have found me and followed me. That's fine. But mainly through Facebook. Facebook is where I deal with, and I know a lot of the younger crowd don't really like Facebook so much, and it's like, oh, but that's kind of the one that has been pretty big for me for my career. One thing I was going to say, Maurice,
like us hang out, Wayne.
Yeah, I was just going to say one last thing on the age thing. You know, I started older, and it was kind of fun that someone came up to me and said, you know, when you start at 20, a lot of people are thinking about at 20 is what should I do for a career? When you start at 20, there's like 1 million people trying for that role that you're trying for in the industry. But when you're in your 30s, there's like 100,000. And when you're in your 40s, there's like 10,000 people competing for those roles. And, you know, in your 50s, it's like 1,000 people. I mean, still, it narrows down. Like each decade, you stay with it. So I would encourage those that are older to, if they wanted to when they were younger and didn't, jump in. You know, now's the time. And if you're younger, you know, is this something that God called you to? Well, stick with it in a reasonable way, and maybe as you get older, it gets a little easier. But yes, it can be very hard when you're young, but it is still worthwhile when you're my age and starting. It's been very fun.
Absolutely. Great advice. And Wayne, thank you so much for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with actor Wayne Matychuk on the Maurice Brown Show. And if you have enjoyed this interview, like it and share it. And then subscribe to the Maurice Brown Comedy Channel. And if you got here at the very end and you're like, oh, I missed it. No, wait a second. Not really. You can watch the replay at about 5 p.m. this evening on the Creative Motion Network on Roku TV. So you really did not miss it if you think about it in that way. And we've also been live on Pulpit TV as well as Facebook and YouTube Live. Once again, we've been talking with the very talented Wayne Matychuk, who you can see in Washington's Armor, a trilogy about the young life of George Washington, to be released probably around the Thanksgiving time of year, during the holidays for sure. He's also a part of Night Guard, which is a great short, action hero short. Got to check that one out. Features actor Jonathan Wessel. And so God Bless the Broken Road. You can also see Wayne Matychuk in that as well. So once again, Wayne Matychuk on the Maurice Brown Show. Wayne, I want to thank you once again for being on the show, my friend. And may the peace of Christ, Wayne, be with you and your family, my friend. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Maurice. God bless you too.